Good morning, Coda Dan.
Hello, hello. How are you guys doing? How you doing, Hefe?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm just setting up the live stream here, getting ready to go. I got my topics down. We have a lot to talk about today. There was a
Yeah.
lot of DAO. You could tell people really wanted to talk about DAO stuff yesterday, so I think today will be a good conversation around that.
Yeah, I'm on the DAO forum today, having a look at all the different topics. Lots of good stuff.
I also have a Miro board open. Shout out to Hardcore for putting that together. I'll put that in the chat right now for anybody who wants to follow along. You can. Oh, I see you put the link in there. I'll just post it again. GM friends, GM. A lot of GMs in the chat. And we'll just go live. So we're live streaming. Okay, right on. So I got the mirror board open right here. You guys can follow along on that. I also have some tabs open for some topics we're going to talk about today. And feel free to come on on stage at any time if you feel like you want to get more involved in whatever we're talking about. Whether you have an opinion or you have a great idea, definitely put your hand up. We'll try and get you up here and get you to say your piece.
Yep.
Today we're gonna start with channeling was a big topic yesterday. A lot of people were getting into that discussion around the channeling cooldown, and there seemed to be an issue. I guess the main issue around that is people missing channelings as a result of the way it is right now. But
Not so much missing it. I think the main issue is when if you're in the wrong time zone, it might be at a very weird hour for you. And so you're basically missing out on the spillover if you're not in that time zone and you're not up at midnight UTC. So you're missing out on all the spillover that you could be collecting. I think that's the main issue.
I guess that Gotchi happy hour that happens around 8 p.m. Eastern, I
Yeah.
think it is when the reset happens. So yeah, based on the first, I guess that's based on the very first day when we started channeling. That was the time that was determined for the rollover for Gotchis. So I would like to know, I guess, what some options we could have, what options we have available, which would be, fairly lightweight on the dev end, because I know you guys are busy, but also, just can quickly fix this and give other people, maybe in a different time zone, the opportunity to actually get their channeling in, so they don't have to wake up at 4 in the morning. It's kind of like the petting dilemma, right? When you miss a pet, then you restart, and then your window, your petting window, your 12-hour window, it starts from the next pet, right? So you actually have control there over your time window. I'm wondering. I mean, there's a vote here, the poll in the DAO. Um, One of the options being keep the new everyone resets at midnight UTC mechanic, and then the second one is revert to the original cooldown timer described in the Gotchiverse Bible. And I think the cooldown timer is similar to the petting timer, right? Where if you miss a pet, the time that you engage with the Gotchi again, that resets for that time. I think that's how it works, right? Or how it was described anyway in the Bible.
Um, yeah, I mean right now it's everyone is being reset at the same what is it? Midnight UTC, and the old way would be every time you channel the 24-hour period would basically begin from that moment. And those are the two current, but like those are the two options we've explored so far as a community. I'm sure there's other options like and not speaking from the technical side here, but more just potential options that we could do if we're trying to solve the main issue, which I think is that people are worried they're not gonna, if they're not up at that hour, that they're gonna be missing out on their channeling. That seems like that's the biggest issue, that people are missing out on spillover. So I see actually Esmeralda in the chat here as an interesting idea. It could just be that the spillover, like we wouldn't have to change anything, but we could just change the way that spillover is handled. We could have like a potential maximum spillover per minute or per hour or something. And whatever, if it hits the limit for that minute, it would just go on to the next minute, and kind of spillover would be timed over over a longer period of time than all going out at once.
Yeah, that's a really interesting suggestion because, I mean, that really spreads it out over a 24-hour period, giving anybody the opportunity to collect Alchemica. Um, yeah, I think that
Yeah,
that is interesting.
and we are going to have more issues with more spillover as the reservoirs come on. But the reservoirs they have an 8-hour cooldown period. So we might, and that cooldown period currently, the way we're thinking of it, it's just going to be every 8 hours, and then it's going to add on 8 hours to the next time. So it's not going to be like a cooldown window. It's just 8 hour. After 8 hours, you'll be able to empty your reservoir again. So there will be a little bit of extra. There could be potential people like emptying their reservoirs at the same time at every 8 hours, which could potentially add some more stress to the system.
Notorious BTC also has a great suggestion, and I don't know technically how how challenging these would be to implement, but he says, what if each district had some fountain that all the spillovers went into from that district,
Hmm.
and when the meter was full, it would blow the Alchemica all over the district, like a massive geyser kind of thing.
So like when the meter's not full, there would be no spillover. Is that the idea?
Yeah, it would just be it
Until
would
hmm.
until it would pop. Yeah, so I guess that would actually create this mechanic where everybody in the district has to be channeling to get their geyser to pop sooner, to get it to fill up. And maybe that's a incentive for everybody in the district to even maybe coordinate a channeling in the district to do that, regardless of guilds and stuff. I think it would create an interesting mechanic for sure.
Yeah, but I think Mikey J comes back to the point here. It would still, people would still be channeling at the same time. The limit would still be hit at the same time. So I don't know
Yeah,
if that
very
would
true.
really solve it.
No, you're right. I think the trail, the Alchemica trail that you were describing earlier from Esmeralda, that actually does make sense. But I wonder, like on your end, how difficult would that be to implement from like the smart contract side of it? Is it a fairly easy
So
thing?
there's actually the spillover is not smart contract side really. The only part that's coming from the smart contract is when you do the channeling, it sends the spillover amount over to a contract that's basically holding all the Alchemica right now. And so we take that, and we on the server we create the Alchemica spawn event. And so for us, I mean, we would just need to have like a queue and have a minute, or it probably would be per minute, or maybe per 15 minutes or something, like a limit. And once that limit is hit, there would be like no more Alchemica. We would basically know how much Alchemica we have pending, and that Alchemica would then be we could kind of I mean, I'm kind of thinking on the fly here, but we could probably say we had like 10,000 Alchemica pending. We know that we want to empty that out by the next hour, so we could just divide it by 60. Obviously, it's going to keep adding on over time, but I'm sure we could figure out some math to kind of normalize it over a longer period.
Yeah, it would almost be like the Alchemica when it's being channeled would almost be going to like the Pixelcraft reservoir, which would have its own spillover at a certain rate at a certain time. Well, not at a certain time, but at a certain rate over the 24 hours.
Yeah. I mean,
Wherever
the
it's
other
located.
way, without actually like worrying about queuing Alchemica and stuff, we could add a user defined timer to when they want to channel their Alchemica. If you don't want to channel it at midnight, you could set your specific Gotchi to channel at 8 p.m. UTC, and then they would find the time zone they're most comfortable in, and they would optimize for that. So I
Yeah, I
think,
mean,
yeah.
I think
Mhm.
Choina is pointing on the Miro board to one thing here that ties in with what you just said. How about we just add a checkbox to the UI that lets you reset your reset time to the current time when channeling? Yeah,
Mm,
so a little checkbox to the UI that lets you reset your time to the current time when channeling.
yeah.
So you'd say, okay, I'm on at 6 p.m. today. So I'm check my box off at 6 p.m., which means from now onwards till I break that cycle, it's gonna be 6 p.m. for me. But let's say tomorrow or the day after I miss it, and now it's 7 or 8 p.m. and I've gone past the time. I lost out on 3 hours, but now okay, I checked the box off at like, all right, my channeling time is 7 p.m. now. So now it's reset to 7 p.m. Would that be any more difficult to implement than, doing a consistent rate of spillover over 24 hours? Like, which one would be easier to implement, and which one do you see like actually fixing the issue quicker, I
I mean,
guess?
they're either one's going to require some UI. Well, so the queuing would take more backend, and so like backend, I mean like the our Web 2 infra. We'd have to write some scripts to handle the queuing, and then the user defined 24-hour period would require some changes to the contract with it, which I think shouldn't be too difficult, and then some changes to the UI to add in that update your channeling window kind of thing.
Yeah, I feel like if this
Um,
is
mhm.
implemented, it'll maybe even improve the rental market a little bit, possibly. Not that it's not there's anything wrong with it. I just think it'll give more opportunities for people renting a Gotchi at any given time to at least get some
Mhm.
Alchemica.
Yeah, I think it's pretty heavy skewed towards the midnight crowd right now.
Yeah, for sure.
And
Good,
yeah,
good morning,
we
Zico.
Hey,
hey Zico.
yeah, I just wanted to comment that Choina brought it up, and it's been brought up. I think I brought it up yesterday that like, and you were just talking about it, where being able to choose their time if it isn't too difficult to implement. I just feel like it solves basically all of the current issues that we're having. It'll spread out Alchemica for people renting for scholars um, throughout the day because not everyone will be channeling at once. And Mikey brought up that if we change channeling to be like or spillover to be throughout the day, it kind of changes the whole essence of channeling.
Yeah,
It's more than just changing a time or changing reset or something. Like it would be changing how channeling works completely.
I agree. It's kind of a weird solution. We're trying to make it more event based, but at the same time, all the events are all happening at once right now, so that's why we're getting overloaded. We got completely overloaded this today, I think, and unfortunately, it's kind of Labor Day or Memorial Day weekend, so the team's a little bit more occupied than normally. So that's why it's going to take a little bit longer, but it should be something we can fix with a little bit more work. It's just our infra got a little bit more stress test this weekend than we were expecting.
Yeah, and I think I said this yesterday that like if we were to implement the system where you can choose your time. Obviously, you wouldn't be able to be like, oh, my reset's 1 p.m. today, and then I change it to an hour later at 2 p.m. It would have to be like over 24 hours. and then maybe like you implement like a glitter cost or an alchemica cost, being able to change your time after you set it the first time or something like that, just to add another sync to those
Yeah.
tokens.
Would we want to add a? I mean, I'm all for adding a price to it, but it's whenever we can, whenever there's like quality of life features that people are willing to pay a little bit for. I think that's obviously a great win. Is that something we would want to go forward with adding that?
From the sounds of the chat, like it sounds like everyone, yeah, first one's free, like Tommy said. Everyone sets their first one for free, and then after that, I don't know, like 100,000 glitter, 1,000,000 glitter. I don't even know what the price would be, but I feel like glitter makes sense because it's like a timing thing, like blocks.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. First one should be free, maybe. But then people want to use the system, can maybe burn some glitter, and it is a timing thing that plays into glitter perfectly because
I mean,
that's
glitter's like
yeah.
how much is like one glitter right now? It's probably almost nothing. I don't know if because it's a little bit more. It's a
1,000
little bit
glitter
more.
is 7 cents.
So like less than if we put it at
100,000 would be like
yeah.
$7.
I'd say if we could probably put it at 10,000 and just it would be there forever. People would, if they want to spend it, they could spend it because we don't know what glitter will be at in a month or a year from now. Probably would be. Hopefully, it's more than it is currently.
Transistor
So
says the fee should be higher than one channeling. Well, Transistor, I think the implication would still be that you couldn't change it to like every hour. There would still be some sort of cooldown where it needs to be like over 24 hours in the future.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
There would still need to be that.
I would say there's no need to make the first one free. I mean, it's basically nothing at this point unless we overcharge for it. But I don't think it's something that needs to be really expensive.
If you set it at 10,000 glitter, then yeah, the first one wouldn't need to be free because that's like 70 cents. So it's not the end of the world. It's less than one.
And then it's just more memory and smart contract that it's another variable that we'd have to store. Like how many times have you used this feature?
Yeah,
we have to store that on chain.
And Tommy says, what would this be like one fee for your whole account, or would it be per Gotchi?
Probably per Gotchi.
Okay, well then it adds up a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, we'd have to probably do it per Gotchi. And Dr. Webby says, never mind, make it free. That's what I was wondering. Like, are you guys sure you want to add a fee to this? I mean, it's something you'll only do once, like the majority of people, unless you sell your Gotchi to someone, they want to change it.
Once you get into the groove, right? Once you have your cycle, like you won't break. Like I wouldn't break my cycle once I started. I'm on top of it. But in the one-off scenario, it's like I gotta do it. I can wait. I can either wait for the next cycle or just pay up. Just pay a little glitter and get it done. So yeah, I don't think it's like a huge deterrent. The the value of the Alchemica, I think, is still very much worth it just to pay it a little bit and just do it.
I mean, so I'm wondering a little bit. So the main issue is the spillover, and people are not happy that they're not in the right time zone for the spillover. I mean, but other than that, there's no big issue, right? Like, what's the big reason that everyone wants to channel immediately at midnight UTC? Is it because the majority of players are just they're getting the Alchemica and extracting it and basically like
So I could kind of explain this. So how it works is that so what you do is you rent a Gotchi, say 2 hours and 50 minutes before reset happens. That's already channeled for the day. And then after 3 hours, once reset happens, you still have that Gotchi for another 10 minutes. And you're the only one with that. You're the first person with that Gotchi for the day, and then you can channel with that Gotchi. So you need to do it exactly when reset happens.
Why do you need to do it exactly when the reset happens?
Because then like the owner takes their Gotchi back. So like you
Okay.
only have it for like 10 minutes after reset happens, and you have to do it right then, or else you lose your rental.
Right.
And like you can't, like you have to do it like this, or else like it's hard to find a gotchi after reset that hasn't channeled for the day.
So after this implement, if we made it on a per gotchi basis, I mean,
It would actually confuse things a lot, to be
yeah,
honest. Like it would be hard to like plan for this, but at the same time, like the market will figure itself out, and it's probably a better system. I sent a message in one of our chats saying that like the way gotchis are on the market needs to be changed. It like the current system, it says like last channeled 4 hours ago. It just either needs to say can channel or can't channel.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
and
yeah, I agree. But yeah, we would have to. Right now, it's probably fairly easy to calculate that. We just subtract the time from midnight UTC. But if we implement the system, we would need to have we would just use on the subgraph and just kind of store the channel time for that gotchi on the subgraph. It would be a little bit more complexity that we'd have to spend some dev time on, but not too bad.
I'm just trying to think of all the players who would there's different types, right? There's the Gotchi Vault, there's guilds, individual players. Is there any way paying glitter would negatively impact any one of those? I'm just trying to think of any other possibilities of why this wouldn't be. Like it sounds like a good idea, but I got to be the devil's advocate and say, well, why wouldn't this be a good idea, you know? Does this negatively impact anybody we could think of? Like is Dr. Wagme's in here. Do you see this being anything negative towards what the Gotchi Vault's doing? Or anybody in guilds? Do you see the glitter spending? I see it as a positive thing because I think the more syncs you have for glitter, the better. There's a high incentive to lock up Alchemica with Ghost and keep mining the glitter rewards. So for me, it makes sense, but I just want to make sure we're not overlooking any of the like subgroups in the Gotchiverse. Let's see what the chat says here.
so are you asking specifically about the glitter cost, or are you asking about like
Yeah.
this change in a whole?
No, I think the change as a whole is good. I'm just considering that one piece of the glitter spending. I think it's a good idea from my perspective as an individual player. I have 5 gotchis, 14 parcels of land. It makes sense for me. I'm just wondering if it negatively impacts anybody else. Doesn't seem like it. But
I mean,
yeah.
it's a pretty small amount of glitter. Like
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about this today too at some point, but we need more sinks for stuff. Like the main sink for Alchemica coming up is Harvesters, which just generates more Alchemica. So it's
Mhm.
barely a sink. And like I think we need more sinks for stuff. So
Oh, we have a lot more things coming up. I mean,
okay.
there's besides the harvesters, there's the Gotchi Lodge, the NFT displays, probably more decorations on the way as well. Like I think there's I mean, you can never have too many. So obviously anytime we can add more is good. But I think we do have a lot of we're gonna have a lot of interesting syncs coming up for sure.
Are decorations gonna be craftable like with Alchemica as opposed to the upcoming raffle with where they're
Yeah, so after the raffle, I mean, we don't know, no one really knows what the price of a decoration is at this point, which is great for a raffle because it's unknown. And
yeah,
so we're not going to release a decoration before the raffle
yeah.
because that would lower the EV of the raffle. But after the raffle, I think it's definitely fair game to have some decorations that can be crafted based on kind of the current. It's a little tricky because we'd have to look at the floor price basically of the decorations. But once the market has told us what they are valuing decorations at, we should be able to probably introduce a couple different ones.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, is there a possibility of you say there's a chance that there might be some fun benefits introduced to the decorations. That maybe don't have economic benefits, but they're just like fun features to add to your parcel. what if to add those features you have to burn the Alchemica? You know, you have the static decoration, you know, it doesn't do anything, but maybe there's levels to that of what you can do with that decoration, like benefits.
Yeah,
So
I
if
think, I
you
mean, this is gameplay. I think it's a bit out of scope but there's definitely going to be, like, I think that's a cool idea. I'm sure there will be lots of really fun ideas for the decorations, like, in the future.
it's
We
an
have some
exciting
ideas,
topic.
but yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to wander off too down that road with that subject because there's a couple more. Well, there's quite a few things I want to go over today. The next bit, if we're okay with what we just talked about with the channeling, sounds like glitter spending maybe would be the way to go. So I don't know, should we revisit that next week, or just someone put out a proposal about that maybe, and we can vote on it and see whether we want to do like there's some good options there on the Miro board there. One of them being the checkbox, add a checkbox to the UI, lets you reset your time to the current time. And then maybe have that possibility of also having a glitter expense associated with that. And then the other option we were discussing was possibly having all the Alchemica released over a certain period of time. So there would be like a backlog of Alchemica, I guess, as people are channeling, and that would gradually get released over the 24 hours. So those are the two main kind of options from that discussion. So we can maybe move on that or vote on that and then come to consensus on that, hopefully by, sometime over the week or next week. Does that sound like okay? Or
I'm just waiting to see what the chat thinks here.
see if there's any alternative.
Crypto Green says the options don't sound great, need better ideas. Why would people want to keep clicking stuff to do things with glitter? I don't quite get that.
I don't think he knows what we're talking about.
I mean,
So Crypto Green, what we're suggesting is it's a one-time glitter fee, and you technically don't even need to pay it. You can keep your channeling at the current time, and you would be able to change your default reset Gotchi time.
Yeah. Pay a little bit of glitter to reset the Gotchi channeling time.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we can almost make a sig prop if someone wants to make a sig prop for that. I think the DAO voting power is pretty much fixed at this point. Has anyone noticed their voting power looking off?
Well, mine looked all right. I haven't. Yeah. I think it should be. Tommy Gotchi. What about allowing Gotchi owner to pause channeling?
So what they're asking for is essentially like if you rent out your Gotchi, don't let someone else channel it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we can add that. We've discussed that a little bit, and definitely something we can add. I think is that a separate? It's kind of a separate issue almost.
Yeah, it's separate, but still related to channeling. So I guess that's why I brought it up.
Yeah, something we can definitely bring up and discuss for sure. But I think we can make a sig prop with the what we just discussed. I think, and maybe move on that, get a vote going. So maybe we can move on to the next topic, which is we're digging deeper into this crazy model that Mikey J and Notorious BTC are working on. They're adding to it every week, so it's kind of nice to get an update on what they're working on. And I think it's important for people to know what they're working on because this is a pretty big project. Like, I was reading the report. I actually got a chance to like read through it, not the whole thing, but gonna revisit that again and run through it maybe probably a couple more times even because there's a lot to absorb in there. But I highly recommend you go check it out. So on the Miro board there is a number of points that have been put out here. If you guys want to join me up on stage, that would be great. If you're able to, I think Notorious BTC was in here. Mikey J's up. Yeah, so we can. Perfect. GM, good morning, sir.
All right.
GM.
Got the duo. Hey guys.
Oh, hello. Good evening.
Hello. So I noticed you fellas changed the not the model, but the graphic a bit. The Empire Builder is no longer the Empire Builder. He's the Expandor. And then we see the Degen Speculator is the Upgrader. So then we have the Low Leveler and the FUD Maxi Low Leveler. Maybe we could start with just going through some of these changes, what you guys saw, to prompt you to make these changes, and then we can kind of dig into it from there.
Yeah, sure. I'll start off, and Mikey J, jump in and correct me if I miss any of the nuance on the bot decision. The Degen Speculator and the Empire Builder with the original numbers, they ended up being the same thing, where it was just one bot doing the one simulation giving the right answer, and the other was useless. So we ended up switching it to, okay, well, one's going to be more of an expander in that he wants to expand his land with all L1s and then upgrade once he reaches his capacity size-wise, and just upgrades that way. Whereas the upgrader more is interested in, building tall. So he starts with L1, which is a single, and upgrades that all the way to the top and expands after he's reached his cap that way. So that was the decision on the bots to switch those two. And then we added the low leveler and the FUD Maxi, as those came up as quite strong strategies, especially for the original recipe. The low leveler and FUD Maxi were extremely overpowered and something worth looking at in further detail. So those are the four that we went with in this in the simulations.
That's really interesting. The ones that interest me personally that are relevant to my strategy is definitely the low leveler, and that's the playing the long game, right? So we're looking out many years ahead, and maybe you don't get you get the return on your money back quicker. Is that correct? If you're building, just focusing on the L1s, the return of what you initially invested is sooner, but it takes you a lot longer to get that alchemic out of the land, off your land.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Okay. And then for
Yes.
the other, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, just succinct to the low level, or the initial investment's much lower because you're not upgrading, so your sunk cost is much less. But on that point, you shouldn't be able to drain your total resource within Act One, for example. Like that's the length of Act One was the minimum amount of time that you could realistically drain all your resource because of the drip. So yeah, it would need to go beyond that time horizon to be a different play style to something else.
And then on the other end of it, you have is it fair to say they're kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum, like the low leveler and the FUD Maxi low leveler on one end of the spectrum, and then on the other end of the spectrum, you have the upgrader and the expander, who are actually they're actually sinking Alchemica in additional Alchemica into upgrading the structures, getting the rate of extraction up higher a lot quicker, and getting the yield out sooner. But their overall return is going to be, I guess, lower in a sense because they're investing some capital in the form of Alchemica, right? To actually to get there, basically.
Yep, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And yeah, so the ROI percent wise on the low level and FUD is higher, but their actual yield is much lower in the short period of time.
So I'm looking at the recipes for the harvesters here. Maybe you guys could go over the difference between A and B a little bit, and
Yeah,
like how they affect the two.
Sure. So first we wanted to look at like this ideal gameplay where there's a crossover at some point. So if you're an upgrader or an expander, at one point one is ahead, and at the other point the other passes the first one. Because if it just, for example, if the expander is always spending less, harvesting more, and has a higher ROI, then there's not really any strategy in the game beyond just expanding and upgrading once you hit your capacity, right? It's always going to be the same strategy. So that was like the logic behind it in the beginning, which goes back to the first week we did this. So the different harvester recipes, there's recipe A, which is the one you brought forth, Coder Dan, in the call a few weeks ago, and it holds true to the diminishing returns model. So what the diminishing returns is the delta, that is the change in the daily yield on a harvester. It actually gets weaker as the harvester grows. So for example, from level 1 to level 2, the yield goes from 5 to 10, which is 2x. But if you look at level 8 to level 9, it goes from 400 to 700. So it's less than 2x of an increase in yield. So the returns are diminishing. So that was that was true to recipe A, is the same idea with the diminishing returns as the original model. It was just less punishing. It was sort of flattened the curve from the original model, which the diminishing returns were too strong to be viable. And then you also lowered the recipe cost across the board, and the build time stays the same as the original. And then if you flip over to recipe B has the harvesters increase in yield. They become more powerful as they scale. And the way that, so like level 9 becomes a really, really powerful harvester. So you have a desire to hit that level 9, maybe before even you expand into the full quantity of your land. So the changes on this one is the low-level harvesters are actually a bit more expensive than recipe A. The build times increased a bit more. The delta, like the change of the yield, it increases with each level. And the level 9, as I said, is quite powerful. So those are like the key differences between the two. And that's all I have to say about that at the moment.
So the delta is that in? This is in not it's not a multiplier, right? Because like from 8 to 20 it's 12, 20 to 30 it's 10, and then it jumps from 30 to 60, which is 30, 60 to 90 is 30, 90 to 160 is 70. So it's definitely increasing there.
Are you
But
talking
it's
about
not
recipe B?
Yeah, but it's not
Yeah.
increasing in terms of a percentage increase, I guess.
It's not linear. It has a bit of an
Yeah.
exponential curve to it. So what that does is it creates a situation where, the lower levels become more underpowered, and the higher levels, the closer you get to level 9, the faster the ROI is increasing. But because you're having to pay the cost of the lower levels to get there, plus the cost of the maker and the altar. I mean, that was kind of the key thing, which is, we looked at a lot of different options, and a lot of the mechanics options, they just kind of put penalties on expanding out more L1s. But the issue is we really needed to make the higher levels more viable, because it was ultimately like the cost of the maker level and the cost of the altar level, which of course conveys other benefits too, that just like added more costs on top of the harvester cost. So by having the harvester ROI increase, it gives you kind of a reason it helps offset those other costs. So that's ultimately why too. I know some people ask like, okay, what about these different mechanics that we maybe didn't address in the model? Either we started to model them and just found they just didn't achieve a desired result because most of them just kind of nerfed the expander without giving the upgrade but they also hurt the upgrade at the same time. So really the best way we found to tackle it was to change the crafting recipe, because we basically needed to give some carrot to the higher levels and not just give stick to the lower levels, essentially.
I see the outline for ideal gameplay. The player must be faced with a choice: expand or upgrade, meaning, reap higher yields now or later. That's a choice people will have to make. So how do the maker bots tie in with this as a proposed solution or like enhancement to the mechanic?
Yeah, so just as Mikey J talked about, we looked at these different mechanics, and one that we looked at a lot was the maker dictates maximum harvester build quantity, which was discussed a bit in the call. And ultimately, it becomes too heavy of a tax on all builds, really, to have to implement that. So if like the community really, really likes this idea of the maker bots dictating the build quantity, it is workable. You would just have to go change the recipes of the harvesters to be more forgiving, since you're paying this heavy tax on the maker, or you'd have to change the price of the maker as well, to make it a bit softer, because the yields drop dramatically if you go with both a change in recipe and the maker, which you can see. I'll drop this into the chat real fast. If we do recipe A, you can see you go into your negative profits for such a long period of time. And here as well. So ultimately, it was unnecessary. So we wanted to have a solution that was the most elegant with the least amount of impact to what we currently have in the game. So to add this, it was just kind of redundant to getting the desired result.
Looking at them right now, the ones you posted there. So it seems like, like you were saying, Mikey J, the maker is pretty much a critical piece of infrastructure, as far as like the Alchemica tokenomics for the harvester. Like it ties in pretty much directly to the harvesters, right?
Yeah,
What we
and
do with the makers.
yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I know there was just a brief mention yesterday in the Hangout of like when the makers would launch. In terms of like when we looked at like what players would actually do, the cost of the maker is going to be a big calculus, especially if you have a larger parcel. And so I was actually also going to say that, given what we've seen, I would, propose that the maker, because I know there was a chance, Coder Dan, you mentioned that the maker may not launch at the same time as the harvesters. And I would just caution that I really think that would have an impact on how people would play in the early game. And I think it would basically push more people towards, assuming that the limit is still there, that you can only upgrade one per time. I think we're going to see like basically everyone being expandors and playing one strategy for a while, which is then also going to maybe have an impact on how much glitter is burned. So I would say that they seem very inherently tied to me, in terms of the economics. So I just kind of want to throw that out there. I kind of feel like they should come together.
Yeah, we're going to be going over the really, I don't think there's, as on this contract side, there's really not that much that needs to be added for the maker. I think the main delays would be if we were trying to have like some fancy animations for the game, but obviously those will get thrown out of the window if we can't make it in time, because I think we do want to have the maker launch together with the reservoir and the harvester.
And I'll just add, people seem to be very receptive to the MVG like approach that you guys have been taking from the start with the launch. So I don't think that's going to ruffle too many feathers. If we just chuck the animations and all the fancy like sugar on top and just go with the basic functionality for now, just to avoid any issues with tokenomics, that these guys potentially see happening.
Mhm.
There's just some notes at the bottom of the little blurb here for the TLDR. Maybe if you guys want to hit on these points, Alchemica bank run, the great sell-off, timing everything, and maybe closing. I guess closing remarks is just the summary of the piece. But are there any of those items that you guys want to touch on from the write-up?
Yeah, the bank run thing was something Mikey J noticed, and that's, we're given this idea we can sell our installation back for half the cost, but in the building of the installation, only 35% of that cost goes to the Great Portal. So the question is, where does that remaining 15% come from? There's a potential, if this is accurate, then there's a potential bank run if every player decided to destroy everything all at once. Then there's a big missing chunk of the refund that players would get. I don't know if we interpret that incorrectly. Dan, if you want to share on that,
No,
or
that is
have
that is
thoughts on it?
correct. I mean, we did not think that would be a scenario that would happen, and it's not like it's a huge. Well, it's so that was kind of discussed when we were going over the tokenomics. We didn't really think it would be an issue because there's not that big of a difference. But yeah, you're right. There could be a scenario in the future where everyone tried to unequip their installation and got the cost back. Um, I mean, I'm not gonna lie about that. That is a potential. We could alter that by, instead of giving 50% back, only giving 33% back. But even then, the Great Portal is the realm contract currently, and that's that we have an interesting idea about having a capacity, like a max capacity of the Great Portal, which I believe is currently set to I believe it's 1% of the total supply of each Alchemica. The idea is that once we reach that limit, the Alchemica would, instead of being channeled and creating new tokens, that Alchemica would be um, kind of sent from the Great Portal over to the channeling, so we wouldn't be creating new tokens anymore. And so if we carry through with that idea, there could be a potential that there's more installations, and if everyone did suddenly unequip all their installations, then there would be not enough Alchemica in the Great Portal for that. So there is that possibility. The reason we did that was because we thought the benefit of not minting new tokens every time and kind of recirculating the Alchemica outweighed the potential of a bank run. That was kind of the thought process behind that. That Great Portal capacity could be increased in the future. Right now it's set to 1%, but that could be a thing that we could increase with the DAO vote as well. So yeah, the Great Portal is kind of like the central bank of of the Alchemica.
So on that, then the next thing, and here's the great sell-off, which is, what's going to happen at the end of Act 1. The recipes have changed some, regardless if we go with A or B or something alternate. But there is a potential to extract all your Alchemica on time.
Mhm.
So at the end of Act 1, we're going to have this huge wave of players who
Mhm.
destroy their installations and a massive influx of Alchemica into the market. So that was
Well,
what we're
yeah.
looking at. Like, what's going to
Well,
happen
I
at the
mean,
end of Act 1?
I think we'll probably Act 2 will probably handle that fairly handily, right? Because we'll have, at that time, I'm sure we'll have more parcels available, which will have new sinks, probably new installations. Also, probably will continue to have harvesters and reservoirs in that. I mean, the game will continue. It's like an expansion pack. And so people, you might be on equipping, but you're probably likely gonna equip it. You're gonna purchase a new installation and equip it onto your other parcel as well.
That makes sense. Cool. So then the timing, everything. Just a note about the modeling that was done is all of this is built on a 2-year timeline. But there are expected delays with game development, and it might change things considerably. For instance, the first drip is 25% of your total supply, and then the replenishments after each great battle. So it's worth knowing that Act 1 might actually last much longer than 2 years because the combat and great battles are unlikely, from just what I'm speculating on, they're unlikely to begin a few months after we get our harvesters live. So that does shake things up. Also, as Mikey J pointed out, the maker doesn't go live with the harvesters. That does throw off the calculations that are presented above. I just thought that's worth sharing. And then, of course, there's the unknowns, right? So, like, the calculations are being done on what we know with Act 1, the numbers we have, but we really have no idea how Act 2 and beyond will look. We don't know how the resources are going to look with the grid and everything else. But the models were built to the best of our ability given the data we have for Act 1. So that's just the last bits. And then in the closing remarks, it's, something to note is we did our best to make the ROI targets in line with the original recipe. But I think ultimately, if we do vote to change these things, we should understand and assume that Pixelcraft might change the recipes a little bit to get them in line with the target ROI they have. They have more tools in their kit to look at. So just keep that in mind if we move forward to make a vote, which I would propose would be, option 1 would be no change or back to the drawing board, recipe A or recipe B.
Yeah, I see.
Okay.
I actually kind of see 2 maybe proposals: recipe A or B, and then also implement makers as a package with harvesters, or implement makers after the fact.
I think I think that's a gameplay. Ideally, we will have. I mean, they're already implemented on the smart contract side. It's just a matter of having them as an installation being equipped. So, really shouldn't be that difficult to do. We haven't had our internal meeting about speccing out this release yet. So that's one question I'll definitely be bringing up in our upcoming meeting next week is what would be why would Maker be delayed? Because it's really quite simple on the smart contract side. It's just literally increasing like one integer in the contract when you equip it. So I don't really see why there would be a big delay with it. I think when we go live with the harvester release, we want it to be a really strong release. So we want to have all of our ducks in a row for it.
Nice.
There's a question, and I could be incorrect on this too, but am I correct that the surveying all happens in Act 1, and that at the end of Act 1, that's essentially all the Alchemico supply will have been distributed into the parcels? Is that right?
So during Act 1, there's going to be a total of 10 rounds.
Right.
Like you said, 25% will be in the first round, and then each round after, I believe, is like 8.3%. And that's for Act 1. Act 2 will be we're planning out basically an entire storyline here. And I mean I can probably say with a high amount of certainty that there will be more land coming in Act 2 and 3, because if you look at the tokenomics, I believe in Act 1 there's only 155,000 parcels that are available, and then the rest are allocated for Acts 2 and 3. So there'll be more parcels, and I'm sure there'll be more. Yeah, the land it'll be a little bit different than Act 1, but it will be probably also have plenty of farming aspects to it.
Right. But if I have land that I've been farming in Act 1 in the Citadel, and let's say I've managed to drain harvest all the Alchemica out of it, I wouldn't expect to get more supply in that land after Act 1. So
That's right. Yeah, that's
so
correct.
yeah, so I guess that's and this just because it was coming up in the chat. That's just why I was bringing it up again. So I guess then the concern then for people are asking is that then at the end of Act 1, I don't need my harvesters and reservoirs anymore. Now, one thing that just occurred to me is if you were able to move those harvesters and reservoirs to new land, that is one potential way. I don't know if that causes any problems, but that's maybe one potential way we could head off any kind of big sell-off of harvesters and reservoirs.
Yeah, I kind of see the Citadel and the grid as becoming, they're going to become like after you've finished cleaning out your parcel. I mean, you can leave it to wither away and do nothing with it, or you can start like I kind of view it as the harvesting is the first round of like cleaning out your parcel and like extracting all the value from it from the Alchemica side. But then these are still going to be big areas within the game. We're going to have events there. There'll be stuff going on. There'll be traffic walking around, looking at stuff, picking up Alchemica. So what I kind of view it as this area will kind of be transformed into more of a traditional metaverse. Like there'll be NFT displays, there'll be the like bazaar things there, there'll be mini games, there'll be developer SDK stuff. There'll be like it'll be its own metaverse at that point. It won't just be like the farming aspect will still be there, but it will be a little bit less. And all the farming activity will be moving over to the next act. So people can unequip their reservoirs and harvesters and get and redeem their upgrade costs, but they'll probably also you'll definitely want to keep your altar. You'll probably want to keep your any sort of social stuff you have on that parcel will stay there.
Right on.
And
Yeah.
will channeling last through all acts? Yeah, we have anticipated and built it into the tokenomics that channeling is basically supposed to go forever. Because that's why we have the great portal and its capacity. Because if we let channeling go on forever without that, the eventually will reach a max supply of tokens. We will reach it a lot faster than we would if we don't have that capacity limit.
Yeah. Okay, that gives us
So basically the proposals we have here, the only thing we really need to vote on for this proposal is which recipe we want to do for the harvesters, right? Everything else is there's no other major changes that you guys are recommending.
Ultimately, no, unless people really love the maker-defined maximum build quantity. Then that would require, since it's so expensive to the maker, that would require a recipe C entirely. But yeah, I see Slick brought up a point. Absolutely, I think it's worth looking through all the information, going through the charts and all the simulations and seeing what's there. And if people are even savvy, they can go into the whole thing's open source. They can play with it as well. And yeah, spend a little bit of time like actually really looking at the things and see how we feel about it, bring up any concerns, and we can go into like a really nice chat on the forum and bring a vote.
Yeah,
If I
this
could
is great.
I just was hoping I could
Go
add
ahead.
one more thing about the balance between the different parcel sizes. We did do, most, and this isn't mentioned in the report, but we did do most of our research. We really spent the bulk of the time looking at spacious parcels, just because they offered the most flexibility in terms of different play styles. And we did then go ahead and run the simulations on reasonable and humble parcels. And basically, look, the spacious is always going to be at sort of an advantage over reasonable and humble because of the benefits the maker level and the altar level convey across the parcel. So they're paying the same amount for a higher level altar or maker that smaller parcels are, but yet they're getting more benefit out of it because it applies across their whole parcel. So there's no way getting around that, and that's just going to be part of the game the way it is now. One thing you'll see, and I just want to put this out there as a caveat, is the reasonable and humble probably in reality aren't going to be as bad as they sort of sometimes appear in the simulation. And that's just because the bots in the simulation do try and go as fast as they can. So they do upgrade their maker pretty aggressively. And in reality, if you're on a humble parcel, you're probably not going to build a maker at all. And that's going to remove big costs, and it is going to help the humble a lot. So I want to throw that out there in case you're looking at the balances of the different. It's not as bad as it looks. One thing I will say is that recipe A in particular is they both sort of hurt the smaller parcels because they are diminishing the returns of the lower level installations. But recipe A in particular, we found when we ran it, was quite harsh on the more harsh on the lower level, especially humble. So that is one thing I would be aware of. We can rerun these simulations, and if I were to rerun them, I would tell the bots not to bother crafting maker on humble, and that would definitely help them. But that is one kind of key difference. The A and B, they end up being pretty similar, but that was one big difference. So I just wanted to highlight that.
Yeah, when we were running the numbers on recipe A, and it did appear that the humbles, and especially humbles, would be pretty weak compared to the spacious, because the yields were just so low compared to what the final price was. It was with the altar. But basically, the humbles get hurt because if you're incentivizing people to upgrade to a level 9 altar, the level 9 altar ends up costing more than like the humble parcel has in Alchemica. So the humbles obviously can't upgrade to that level, and so they're basically stuck at like a level 4 or 5. And so if you nerf the output of a harvester at those levels, it ends up the humbles basically take much longer to empty their full Alchemica. I guess, and that's what when we talk about nerfing, I guess that's one of the main considerations that we have. Is basically how much Alchemica can you extract within a year time. That's our simulation, how we're working with it. The number is basically a 1-year period. So Dr. Wagner says he's asking, is recipe B is a huge nerf to spacious parcels? I'm trying to figure out what he means by nerf, because it's a big term. He said they would be made less valuable relative to the other land choices. But I'm still trying to figure out what exactly is he referring to there in the recipe. Maybe you guys know.
Yeah, I don't see that. I don't see that.
Is he maybe like? I'd have to think. What was his intended play style with the spacious? If it was to put a bunch of level 1s on it, then yeah, I think probably that like that's the low leveler.
Yeah,
we're trying to avoid that. Well, not avoid it, but like de-incentivize that player archetype, I believe, right?
Yeah, and it does that. I mean, it does that, throughout the parcels, but I don't really think it disrupts the balance. If anything, recipe A and recipe B make the spacious more powerful relative to the other parcels. And the ROI, so the ROIs we were getting, again, this is not considered to be like an optimal strategy, but just these example strategies. The expandor on a spacious was getting an ROI, a liquidated ROI, which assumes you sell all your stuff, but 238% over 3 years, a reasonable 101%, and a humble 25%, although realistically it's probably higher than that. But still, relatively speaking, I would say the spacious parcel is still if I were to compare it to the current market prices, I would say it's still way undervalued in terms of what you can harvest off of it and the type of return you can get off of it. So I would say the spacious is still quite a bit more powerful than the reasonable and humble, compared to what its size would suggest.
In your guys' simulation, how many of each harvester did the spacious for recipe B? Do you know how many they crafted? Like how many
Yeah.
they installed?
Yeah, I have to pull it up. Let's see.
I believe in ours it was either 4 or 5 level 9s, I think it was.
Yeah, so let's see. Spacious recipe B, the average harvester level, was between 8 and 9, obviously. So they crafted mostly 9s with some 8s. And the upgrade ore got to 23 harvesters with recipe B.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Of one type? Like
No,
23
total.
No. Oh, okay.
So that would be,
So
and
basically,
they did
yeah.
roughly split it between all the Alchemica types.
Okay, so
pretty
about
evenly.
four of each type. Or no, 6 of each type.
Yeah, about 5 to 6 of each type. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So how attractive is the maker if we're building 6 of each type? Is it still fairly attractive to have the maker? Or like what level maker did they end up getting? Did they go to level 9?
They went to. They got to the upgrade ore got to level 7 and the expand ore got to level 6. Now it's worth saying that they on all these simulations they didn't ever need more than one reservoir per type in order to. These bots are going for the 8-hour. You empty every 8 hours, so that's another reason why if you're only emptying once every 24 hours because that's easier for you or whatever, it's going to affect your returns in different ways. But they also they're emptying every 8 hours, so they're only upgrading 4 reservoirs. And quite honestly, they probably would achieve a better return if they had, say, 12 reservoirs of a mid-level. They would probably end up doing better. But because we're not really trying to find the optimal strategy, we're just trying to compare one strategy, across different rule sets. So if you had more reservoirs, that would also further push you towards the maker. I think the maker's pretty critical if you're on a spacious parcel because there's just a lot of upgrading to do.
Well, yeah. Even if you're aiming for the 100. I was just gonna say, even if you're aiming for the 128 harvesters, to get that infrastructure built, the maker is like pretty essential for that.
I think it's a choice, right, between either having glitter or building a maker. I mean, some people don't want to LP and they don't want to purchase glitter, so they would just build the maker.
Yeah, I was actually going to say because of that relationship there. I mean, I actually think in some odd way it's like the maker provides some type of price support for glitter, right? Because you have to kind of make that trade-off decision. I think that's very interesting for the game. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the I like the models you're developing and taking an agnostic approach and not saying this is the best strategy, but saying rather this is a appropriate set of strategies and you can pick whichever path is relevant to you. I think it's gonna be interesting to see how this develops as we move on, right? And use this as a tool to help inform like really good decisions around a lot of these installations in addition to like all the work Pixelcraft is doing too. It's really amazing that we have tools being built like this. So hats off to you guys for that.
Yeah, great job. Yeah, this is super cool. I love to see the community nerding out on this stuff as hard as we have been. It's super nice.
Yeah, it brings in a whole new level of depth to even people like myself. I haven't got to dig this deep into the numbers, but being able to look at the charts and have conversations around this is really important. So I really appreciate you guys coming up here and sharing your findings with us.
I'm gonna make a little flash poll here. Obviously, this is not official in any way, but we're just going to make a flash poll. Which recipe would you vote for? Obviously, some people haven't even looked at the recipes yet, so do not take this too seriously. But feel free to drop if you're listening, drop which one you think you'd vote for. So you definitely we've explained it a little bit, but basically recipe A, you're gonna get you're paying a lot less for the lower levels, but you're getting less yield for them per day. And then as you get into the higher levels, you're paying you're basically getting less yield per alchemica, but the amount of yield you're getting is quite high compared to a level 1. I don't know if that explains it. Like the difference between a level 9, you're getting 700 per day versus level 1, you're getting 5 per day. There's a diminishing return between how much you're paying and how much you're getting. But the final price is quite expensive compared to a level 1. But what you're getting is a little bit less than it becomes more optimal to just get a bunch of level 1s. But you're not really harvesting that quickly. Whereas with the recipe B, it seems to me the difference between the daily yield in a level 1 and a level 9 is definitely a little bit less, right? I'd have to let me calculate out. I'm not talking out of my ass here. So 140 versus, or you guys feel free to explain it a little better.
Yeah, I mean the recipe B. I have some interesting graphs I posted up in the chat kind of at the beginning when we were talking, but you can kind of see the price relationship between the current recipe. So the recipe B just really flattens out the cost and ramps up the harvest rate. So yeah, the difference in cost per level is not as great. It's almost like with recipe B, every time you upgrade, you're getting a little closer to getting an even better ROI, which kind of, so now if you're like, oh, okay, I have a level 4, do I build a new level 1 or I upgrade to level 4? You're like, well, if I upgrade to level 4, it's actually kind of a better ROI. But again, I think like what keeps this all in check is that the reservoirs have a kind of a decreasing ROI. The maker has a decreasing ROI. The altar, depending upon how you're calculating it, has a decreasing ROI. So, the harvester is kind of that one. It's the one carrot when everything else is kind of, giving you expense for upgrading up. The harvester is kind of reward you for upgrading up. So it just creates that kind of. It creates the ability to have a conversation like what's going on in the chat right now. Like no one can quite agree on what the right strategy would be, and I think that's kind of a good thing.
Did you guys think at all about the reservoir and anything related to that, prices or capacity or build time?
We didn't look too much. We didn't look too much at the reservoir because the reason being is because when I thought how the players would think, your harvesters then sort of dictates everything else down the line. So what you do with your harvester ultimately dictates what you do with your reservoir, because you're trying to hit a certain emptying rate or whatever. And then what you're doing with your harvester and reservoir then dictate what you do with your maker and potentially your altar, because you're going to need to level those up to keep in tandem. So to us, like it all started with the harvester and everything trickles down from there.
Yeah, agreed.
And we were trying to come up with something that was like the simplest change possible without adding any more confusing mechanics. That was another sort of reason against some of the other mechanics, is we just felt it wasn't necessary, and this was just the simplest way to handle things.
Yeah, very cool. Well, this week we will definitely run these numbers in our internal simulator and see how things look, and we'll definitely post our results here in the DAO forum and in the DAO discussion channel.
Awesome.
Super cool,
Yeah,
guys.
great.
Thank you so much for your effort.
Great, guys. Thanks for taking the time to go into it with us and everything. I think it's a really important topic. Um, really appreciate Mikey J, all the hard work he did on the bot simulation. It's really powerful stuff. Really great watching you work, man. It's awesome.
Yeah. With that, with that being said, maybe we can look at some other things. I know we might. Dan, you have a little time to hang around and talk about a couple more things.
Yeah,
or-
I got about 15 more minutes, guys, and then yeah, we'll have to get off here.
Okay. So I guess we might not have time to get into the whole bubble ups convo. That's a pretty extensive conversation around that. Maybe we'll table that for next week. There's a DAO SOP. Is there going to be sig prop for that? That's that's for Dr. Wagme there. DAO standard operating procedures. If you want to give us more background on that, Dr. Wagme, feel free to come up or elaborate in the chat about the DAO SOP. And then the second item was the Land 3 core prop update. So we're going to be having the land auction in June. Have we decided on a specific date for that yet?
No, well, we're doing our internal schedule, but it looks like probably will be late June, late-ish June.
Late June. Okay. So I mean, hopefully, probably early June. We'll probably have a good idea of that. Yeah. Those are the two items there, just to cover. Well, I guess that one's covered. And then I wanted to bring up T-Bird's boat. I don't know if you saw the boat proposal. How he is going to be advertising some Aavegotchi branding on his. They do a charter. I guess it's a yacht. So that's something I just want to touch on, see what your thoughts are on that, and see maybe if we are able to support him in any way, if he's going to be promoting Aavegotchi on his charters and, having a massive sale with Aavegotchi branding on it. I think is really cool for optics. But we have Dr. Wagme up here. Welcome.
Hey, good morning, guys.
Good morning. Maybe we can just touch on the SOP that I think that's linked to you. So if you'd like to maybe elaborate on that, and maybe we can talk about SIGPROP and what that means.
Sure. The SOP is developed, basically to give us some guidance in how we can run as a DAO, how the task force can run, and how important multi-sigs can run. If someone needs to be removed or added, what is our standard procedure to do that in a safe way, as we're talking about a pretty serious amount of funds and smart contracts that are going to be in control. So we've had a ton of community input to develop the standard operating procedure, including quite a bit of help from our attorneys in the group. So here in a second, I'll post that up in DAO meetings. It's basically done. It needs a couple final touches, but look for a signal prop from me this week to submit to the DAO and then have that accepted as our standard operating procedure. Big takeaways is it gives us how to remove someone, and if we remove someone from the multi-sigs, how do we add someone in for a temporary period? And then secondly, how often should these groups be reviewed and how is that done? So just kind of giving some formality to what we're already doing.
Yeah, that's definitely needed, as we move forward as a DAO to have more of a structure. So is this kind of like being just created right now? It's in the works, and then there'll be a proposal for it implemented at some point?
It's mostly done. I went to Mexico and then I got COVID in Mexico and had to quarantine there. So I didn't get it done, but I will.
Oh, man.
I know. But it'll be submitted this week.
Perfect. Look forward to that.
You feeling better now? You over it, or?
Yeah, I'm in good shape. I felt fine. I was pretty
Nice.
sad to have to quarantine. They took me away from the resort. Had to go to a prison. Barely survived.
Oh God.
No, it wasn't a real prison. It was just a hotel, but it was okay.
Yeah. Did you have Wi-Fi in there?
I did, but I did not bring my computer because it was like a
Oh.
vacation, so I was trying to unplug, but it was a bad decision. I should never unplug from Aavegotchi. I don't know what I was thinking.
Lesson
The,
learned:
the
always be plugged into the matrix.
the bonding curve got launched when I was in quarantine in Shanghai. So yeah, it's still possible to be in quarantine and ship.
Well, I
Not
need
the
to
end of the world.
take notes from you. I'm going to Iceland for 10 days in June, and I'm
Oh.
very concerned about how I'm going to participate in the auction from Iceland, but we'll see. I'll find a way.
Yeah. From your hot tub in Iceland.
That's the best
Very
place
cool.
to participate in the auction, I think.
Yeah. Well, glad you're feeling better and back out of quarantine. That's great.
Just quickly, the only other big update I have from the DTF standpoint is we did pay 600 ghosts already to Mikey and Notorious. We'll send the other 600 now that they've completed their what they said they would. And I don't think we have any other big things or new applications for the DTF. If there is interest from anyone on the call, please submit an application for funding. It's really clear the community can do amazing work, and we want to help incentivize that and reward all the time spent. So I'll put in a link to the DTF application as well here in a sec.
Yeah. I mean, I consider, Notorious BTC, Mikey J, you guys are DAO politicians now, so you should be earning something for that for sure. I just wanted to touch on one more thing, I guess, before you go, Dan. T-Bird, I wish he was in here so he could talk about it more, because I have a surface level understanding of what he does, but he runs a charter on a boat, and it looks like a pretty fancy boat, but I guess the sail needed to be replaced. It was an emergency, and so he went out and actually did Aavegotchi branding on his sail.
Oh, he's already
because he
done
wants
it.
to. I believe he's already done it. But what he's asking for is possibly maybe some, and maybe this ties in with a DTF funding application, possibly if he's able to put together a proposal. But he runs these charters, and I'm sure he talks about Aavegotchi on these charters with people out on the water. And they're gonna notice this massive branding on the sail. But I'd like to hear it from him, and maybe we can get him in here. I'll try and DM him and see if he wants to. I don't think he's in the room here right now, is he? T-Bird? No, I don't see him. But I can DM him or just let him know, hop up on stage maybe next week. Talk about it a little bit more, because I believe it's done already. He's just looking for maybe some support for that. So yeah, I'll reach out to him. I'll get him to come up on stage and maybe talk about what exactly he does and what he plans to do with the sale and promotion and whatnot. Because I think it'd be really great for optics for Aavegotchi, especially if
Yeah.
he's out on the water. I think he said 120 times a year, which is a lot for sailing. So yeah, we'll talk to him about that. But I just wanted to get your initial thoughts on something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we have to. I think there's definitely he's free to make a proposal to the DTF. I mean, we probably need to know a little bit more information about his business and kind of what's the DAO getting out of that investment, I guess.
I mean, it's kind of a cool idea, right? But like who's gonna see that? Like pirates?
Well, I guess he's taking like tourists out on the sailboat, right? So I
Okay.
guess the idea is that while they're on the boat, they would be like they would have a one-on-one, like he could basically like shill Aavegotchi to all of his tourists, and having our big logo on the sailboat would make that an easier sales pitch, I guess. Kind of just make it easier for people to understand what it is.
I believe there's a event-based component too, where they do like sailing races and stuff. So it'd be equivalent to like the Red Bull racing boat. You'd have like an Aavegotchi racing boat. It would be a real life Aave boat, essentially.
Yeah. Do we have the pictures of it now, or is it's still in the works?
I don't think the picture of the actual sail is up, but I'm gonna ask him and see if he can produce some pictures of what it looks like if it's up already, or pictures of the sail that he got. So
Do you know how
I'll
much he's
get.
asking for?
I believe the cost of the sale was $4,700, but he's not asking for the whole amount specifically. He's just saying, let's talk about it. Let's see what we can do. You know, this is what my intention is, and he's just asking to see if he can get some help with that. So that is the total cost of the sale. I think is $4,700, 5,000 USD basically. So we can talk to him about that, see what the proposal would look like, and then we can probably move forward once we have more background on that.
Yeah,
I see
definitely. He can prepare a proposal to the DTF for that.
Yeah, perfect. I see Hardcore has his hand up in the audience. I don't know if he wants to come up and say something, say a little bit.
Hey, yeah, no, so yeah, I talked to T-Bird this morning. He's out on the boat right now. Basically, the idea is to get Aavegotchi to pay for the difference between a plain old sale and one that is advertising for Aavegotchi. That's the core difference there. And if you don't see the angles on it, there's a bunch here. I mean, basically, if you're on a boat, you've got disposable income. You're also trapped with the captain, who is now someone in a position of power over you that is a trusted person automatically. And it being this fine gentleman, that means that you know the line, all I do is this boat and Aavegotchi is coming out of his mouth repeatedly. And you could extrapolate from there, but that's pretty solid right there.
I mean, I do think there's an interesting angles to the DAO that we really haven't explored that much. Is kind of like marketing, and doing more with all of our budget that we kind of have sitting there. We have the DAI, we have the Ghost. We could. There's definitely a little bit of room here to start playing with it a little bit more and funding some of these like micro proposals, seeing where they go. Definitely, I mean, it's not a lot of money, and if it does have some sort of return, like people will start investing into Aavegotchi more because of this. I see No Futuristic mentioning like putting billboards and stuff. Like I don't know about billboards because they're not really targeted, but having some more marketing initiatives paid for by the DAO, I think, is probably not going to hurt, as long as we don't get too wild with it, like start just chucking money to anyone who asks. But I mean, T-Bird he's one of the earliest community members. He's been around for years, like a year and a half, I think, maybe two. So, and it's a sailboat. It could be fun. It definitely would be cool to have an Aavegotchi themed sailboat that we could, our official shipping boat.
I think the back, somewhere on the back, it should just say Coder Dan ships.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Wagme also has a good point. Maybe if T-Bird will host a get-together and sailing event for in real life Aavegotchi event, that would be good for ops.
Where is he? Is he in like Miami, or where does he run his business? You don't know?
Yeah, no, he's in South Texas, and that's
Okay.
another thing. So if you put the QR code and the Gotchi up on there, and he's involved in any sort of local event where like the local TV newscasters are commenting on stuff, they run out of stuff to talk about, and you absolutely know that they're going to be like, so what's with this thing on the sale?
Yeah.
It's just going to happen. They run out of shit to talk about. There's nothing to do there. Oh, the boats are, yep, they're still going there. They're, yep, they're just chilling. We're waiting for it to start. They got
Yeah,
nothing to
like-
talk about. You got pink sail, rainbow sail, blue sail, one with a flag on it. And what's this?
Yeah, I'd like to know. I'd like to know also some metrics like of his business. You know, how many customers on average he's getting out on the water, because he's been doing this for a long time too. I think the boat's been around for a long time in his family, so it's like it's not something new that he just went out and got a boat and now he wants to put an Aavegotchi flag on it. So it's going to be interesting. I really want to actually hear it from the man himself and get him up here on stage hopefully next week and get some more background on it. But I think it's in my opinion, I think it's a really good idea. So okay, I know Dan, probably you got to run pretty soon, hey?
Yep.
We're at
Yes.
hour and a half.
Amazing call as always, guys.
Yeah,
Looking forward to getting some more discussion on this on the harvester proposal. And do you guys anticipate any like further work on this report, or is this pretty much you're like we as far as on our side, we would love to wrap this up by like mid-June, latest really like the last week of June, but that would really be pushing it because we want to have plenty of time to run our own simulations and also just update the contracts and make sure that everything is good on that side. So
like you said in chat, I feel I think we feel done.
yeah, okay, cool. Then we will spend this week and run our own simulations on the numbers and see how things look.
Yeah. And then for next week, we can touch on, there's a proposal out. I think it's a SIG prop for estates already. So go have a look at that. We can maybe discuss that further. There's also the discussion of bubble ups and trait discussion, and then the boat. So that'll be on schedule for next week.
All right. Awesome.
Hey, just to clarify, to make sure I understood what you just said there, Dan. Essentially, are you saying we need to resolve this level 9 thing completely by June 5th?
No, June like 15th.
15th. Okay, thank you.
It would be great if you could have it done by the 15th, and then that would include having like the SIG prop done and all that pretty much finalized. We can do a final core prop and then start implementing it on the contract side to have it done with plenty of time for a possible like July launch of the harvesters reservoirs.
So would it be safe to say we need to have a SIG prop up like by Wednesday?
No, I think we're gonna spend next
With the
week
whole week?
running. Yeah, we're gonna spend the whole week running it and discussing it internally, and then we'll give any feedback that we have to Notorious and Mikey. And then I think
So-
by the week after next would be a good week to finalize and start thinking about making a SIG prop.
But that would be June 15th.
Right. I mean, like having the SIG prop done by June 15th. Like we can put it out by
Okay,
June
I'm sorry.
15th.
I thought you meant voted on,
Oh,
because
no.
we were giving it a week to vote. So yeah.
Like, yeah, if you submit it by like the 15th and obviously hopefully it passes, then we'll bump into a core prop and have it done with plenty of time for the actual release. So yeah, we'll give it next week. Yeah, Dr. Ragmi is a good idea. Submit it after the next DAO call. We'll go over any feedback we have with everyone on the next DAO call.
Yeah, perfect. Appreciate everyone coming out here today. Definitely look at that document if you kind of were lost on what we were talking about today. There is a TLDR kind of version of it within the document, and then the closing remarks do a good summary of the whole thing. And you can definitely look at the 4 archetypes they've laid out in the document. That should give you a reasonable amount of information to feel like you're part of the discussion. Without reading the whole document, if you don't want to read the whole 22 pages. But I definitely recommend if this interests you, look at the whole document. Look through all the pages. I'm going to continue working through it, but I really appreciate the amount of work that went into it. So be a good discussion next week. We'll wrap that up. We'll look at the other 2 major items, and then hopefully we can get T-Bird up here too, and we can talk to him about that. So yeah, appreciate all of you.
One last thing here, though.
Oh, yeah.
For I maybe because I've been documenting, I might have missed this here, but what did we decide with the channeling? What's going on here?
Yeah, it looks like someone should be making a SIG prop about implementing channeling for individual gotchis, basically allowing them to spend, I would say, a small amount of glitter, like 10,000 glitter probably. It could be more, could be 50,000, but some sort of amount
Okay,
of glitter. Yeah.
So make SIG prop for the idea I proposed of just being able to personally set your time and pay for that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Was anybody taking charge of that?
I think it says Zico is apparently on it.
Yeah, like I said, I've never done a proposal before, but I mean, I can either help or try to submit one.
I'd gladly do that one with you.
Okay, yeah, sure. We'll talk later.
Sweet, thanks, bro.
Okay.
Perfect. Yeah, excellent. Glad to see everybody in here. You know, there's over 100 people in the call tonight. So yeah, you know, participating in the DAO is really important. And you know, consider yourself a Chad for coming in here on Sunday morning and talking about DAO stuff with us. So
This is awesome.
yeah, yeah,
Kudos to everyone
definitely.
for tuning in.
Yeah, I feel like it's badge worthy, but I know you guys are super busy shipping and probably no time for that right now. But you know, it's an honorable thing to do, to show up here. And
Yeah, people are. You guys can make Pope badges for the DAO votes, I believe. I don't really know the process for making one, but I know there is a way to link a Pope badge onto Snapshot. So if anyone wants to go the extra mile and make a Pope badge, feel free to do that. We can link it for each proposal, I believe. And I think it can be done like retroactively. But I gotta get off here, everyone. So have a great Sunday, and we'll chat next week. Have our hangout, and I'm sure there'll be lots of stuff going on next week. So have a great one, guys.
have a good one, Dan. And then, you know, for those of you tonight who are interested, we're doing a Gotchi Space at 7 p.m. Eastern on Twitter Spaces on Aavegotchi on my channel. So I'll put a reminder up for that. You can join us. We'll probably talk about some of this stuff here today and break it down. If you have questions, you can come up. If you're new to Aavegotchi, you can come up. We can definitely take your questions. So that's all I got for today. Hope you guys have a good rest of your Sunday, and we'll see you next week. Peace out, friends.